All right, welcome to the second installment of UC Santa Barbara's Innovator Stories series. I'm John Greathouse. You can follow me on Twitter at John Greathouse. We have Randy Motos with us here tonight. Randy is truly a serial entrepreneur and an innovator. He and his company have pioneered the green payment technologies, and we're going to talk about kind of where they started with payment processing, where they are now, and where they're going in the future. Because as we all know, it's changing daily. Money is becoming a thing of the past. Entrepreneurship started early for Randy. He was, like a lot of entrepreneurs out there, selling things like his own artwork, selling wood scraps, selling things in his front yard, lemonade. And he brought that entrepreneurship with him to college. So he started his first company in his dorm room with his co-founders here at UCSB. And he did that while he was pursuing his computer science major. We're going to talk about the new venture competition, some of the other things he did while he was here. So the founders of PayJunction, they took their idea and they built it into a company that processes over $4 billion of transactions annually. They have 2 offices, over 100 employees, and they support over 3,000 independent sales reps all over the US. So it's quite an enterprise. And innovation is still at the heart of what PayJunction does. They build technology that streamlines businesses' payment processing systems and reduces the environmental toll across an entire industry. So all those receipts and paperwork and all that crap from the past, PayJunction is helping all of that go away. Let's give Randy a warm welcome to our stage. Welcome. Good to see you. Wow, I feel like I read that really quickly.
You did a great job.
The adrenaline, I'm so nervous. But I did mention that you were a childhood entrepreneur.
Yeah.
I share that in my background too. So were there some of those, I mentioned a couple of the things you did. The wood scrap was my personal favorite. Were there other things that you did, maybe a little bit older as a teenager that you remember fondly, maybe you learned a little bit from? Or kind of when you think back on those things, what stands out to you?
I think that, I honestly think that entrepreneurship is in your blood.
Yeah.
You're born with it. It's something that kind of like you need to do it. You seek it out all the time. So everything from lemonade stands to, like you said, wood scraps, any type of business that I could think of doing, I would try to do. But more importantly, I actually came here with the intention of starting a business. So when I came here to UCSB, I networked. I tried to meet the smartest people I could. I knew that you can't do it all, right? It takes a village to build a business, so you need to collect people along the way to make it happen. So while I was in computer science, while it was the 4 years that I was here, I tried to meet the best and the brightest and collect them along the way.
So you are absolutely singing from my hymnal. The class that I taught today, actually, we ended the class encouraging the students to curate their network. Like, you know, it's fine to have, these, kind of carefree friends, and I have those friends still in my life.
I have plenty of those.
But it also makes sense to start being proactive about curating the rest of your friendships. And I think students have a hard time with the word networking because it just feels like maybe things that adults do, or it feels fake or not authentic. That's not it at all. It's just really going out there and finding like-minded people that that you feel the same kind of passions that they feel, and then who knows where those passions take you. So let's talk a little bit about your co-founders and how did that initial combination come together?
Actually, when you said like-minded, that kind of triggered a thought in my mind. You actually want different people than yourselves, right? You don't want mirror images of the same people. So
like-minded in the
like-minded
sense of
entrepreneurial,
the passion to start something, but you're right.
Yeah.
Diversity of thought.
That's right. Diversity of thought is really important. So I have there's 3 founders of the company: William Skidmore, Eric Wernicke, and myself, and we're all 3 completely different people. William Skidmore graduated high school valedictorian, was top engineering, computer science, absolutely blew everything out of the water. While I was strong in computer science, I wanted to go to art school. My parents said no, so that I needed to come here to do engineering. So my dream was to kind of do movies and other things like that. And while I was here at UCSB, at night I worked for Paramount Studios. We did the Star Trek movies, did other stuff at night while I was doing my computer science degree, and I got to taste that. Right. But I still needed to do my own thing. So I have the art and the communication and the sales piece. William is the very strong computer science engineering, and Eric, who's also computer science, all 3 of us are computer science, is unbelievable in operations and structure and process. And the 3 different people put together make the magic of what happens.
So I'm going to jump back to what you said about film. We had Eaton Abaz was here. He created AdSense along with his brother and his cousins, lots of other people. sold it to Google. He thought he wanted to make movies when he was younger. Took a couple years off, did a hiatus, and made some movies, and then decided that he didn't like making movies. But he had fun doing it. But he decided that's not his career.
Yeah.
Have you thought about that? Is that in your future, actually going back and going full circle?
No, I think I accomplished that while I was here. So I worked literally I would get off school at like 6, start work at 6, and I'd work the graveyard shift from 6 till 3, 4 in the morning, working on post-production, rendering, and everything else like that.
Right.
Dailies, cuts, and stuff like that. And I got my taste in the industry. It's a really tough industry, and it was beautiful to be part of that artful and creative process, but I put that to bed. I think in the future, I'd like to do something like what you do. I'd like to come back and teach, I think, for me in the future.
Yeah, well, I think good managers, good CEOs, good entrepreneurs are teachers. I mean, effectively, you don't do it by yourself. You got to bring people along with you.
That's right.
And I just think that's part of being an entrepreneur, successful one at least. Yeah. So let's go back to your co-founders then. So I'd love to hear a little bit how you guys coalesced and how you divvied up the work once you actually started working together.
Sure, I think that's great. So we met in Cecil in the computer lab, and anybody who's a computer science student knows in here that you pretty much live in those labs, right? So you make quick friends. You spend a lot of time together. You're kind of in the trenches going through it all, and you form some very deep bonds and relationships, and then we met in going through that. I think there was, I'm going to guess at the numbers here, so don't hold them to me, but I want to say there was somewhere a little short of 400 people that started in our CS class, and the actual graduating class was under 100. I want to say like 60. So the attrition in computer science during that time was extremely high, and the people that made it through it were really tight. Because they've been through a lot together.
It's still pretty high. I don't think the numbers are quite that severe, but the bar to get in is incredible, right? I would never be able to get into this school at this point. I don't want to date you, but do people still go to the computer lab? Like, is that a thing still? Do they really? Yeah. I would have thought it'd be like all super virtual.
Cecil, right? Well, that's where everybody's working.
So you have to actually interact with people?
Yes, exactly.
Well, that's your peer group, right? I mean, at least that's your peer group of technologists. So,
Well, I didn't own a computer. So, like, when I came here, I actually didn't own a computer, didn't own a laptop. So I had to go to Cecil to go do my work.
Wow, okay. I would have guessed that was happening less. That's good, though, because get out there and network, talk to people, talk to that person next to you. So you end up working together. Obviously, you connected from a chemistry standpoint.
Yeah.
How did that evolve from a work divvying up the work standpoint?
Well, it falls into TMP. So the first year, so this is 2000, either 1999 or 2000. It was the first year that TMP did the business plan competitions, and they were just trying to figure it out. And they put it out, and like I said, I've been kind of collecting and looking to start a business for a long time. So I gathered everybody up, and we wrote our first business plan, and it kind of brought us all together, gave us a purpose, and we put the plan into the competition, and unfortunately we didn't win it. But more importantly, we met each other, and the win was the commitment to each other, knowing that we had a good chemistry, we had the right balance of what we were doing. We could accomplish it if we kept working at it.
Was that the year Inogen won?
Inogen, I think, did win.
So they lost out to a multi-billion-dollar company, literally. Like
hey, we're at $4 billion in processing. It's not that bad.
No, again, not to belittle your success, but it wasn't like you lost out to some dude with a bong, new bong.
True.
These people had they changed the oxygen concentrator.
Actually, interestingly enough, my mom just passed away from cancer last week, and Inogen was actually one of the companies I called to get the oxygen machine from them. So I'm familiar with the company. They make a fantastic product, and I'm just proud to have peers and see the type of technology that comes out of here is amazing. Yeah,
and that was the first year we did it. So you see two companies right off the bat. And I think that's the other lesson you guys can take from the New Venture competition is it really is, the cliche is true, the journey. It's not, well, did I win? It's like, well, winning it's nice to quote win, but you guys took that learning that you gathered in that process and you just carried it forward. That's the real win.
The win is the coalescing of the team. The win is learning how to learn and learn how to connect.
Right.
That's right.
I mean, we've seen Phone Halo, which changed its name to Tracker. Sorry, guys. So Tracker came out of the New Venture competition with a whole different company, and actually won. They won some money, but that's not what they ended up doing. They ended up doing a different idea. But it was that working together, getting to know each other, and divvying up the work. So were you always more the sales and marketing face of the company, or did that sort of evolve over time?
Yeah, that's where the personalities fell. I was definitely on the front end for the sales. While both of them are fantastic communicators, and everybody's participated in every facet of the company.
Sure. Yep.
That's where
and they're still very involved, right? I mean, that's.
Oh, we're all involved.
Yeah. So that may not seem unusual to folks in this room, but it's normal, I say it's more normal for founders to kind of go their own other ways. Maybe they get excited about another venture. And you guys have stayed together really from the beginning.
That's right. Yeah.
I think that speaks, and we're going to talk about culture in a minute. I think that speaks a lot, volumes about your culture. So I may have this wrong, but my understanding is the first thing you guys did, so before the new venture competition, was you took an outsourced coding job for a financial company?
That's right.
Is that right?
Yeah. So before the competition, actually, it might have
And
been
you were in your
after.
junior year.
This is senior year.
By my notes, it was junior year.
I think we might have started junior year, senior year. The timings. This is 20 years ago. So, yeah. So talk about we always had something going. So like
Right.
night jobs, was doing the movie thing. When the movie thing was done, we knew that we wanted to work together. And it was actually after the business competition, we knew we wanted to work together. We had to figure out how to get seed money. We didn't want to raise it. It was kind of the economy was changing. I'm old, but you guys all know in 2000 this thing called the dot-com bust. I graduated literally when the entire bottom fell out of the engineering community, the tech market, period.
March of 2000, and
There
you
you go.
graduated in 2000, right?
Yeah, so the computer science degree was probably not even worth the paper it was printed on when I graduated, unfortunately. So we had to be savvy about how we were going to make this thing work. So we took a software contract with a company who was revolutionizing at the time auto lending. So a lot of you have probably bought a car in here, and you go and you get, they run your credit, they give you your APR and the finance score. Back in the days in 2000, auto sales companies had a binder that was this big from all the different banks, and it just had spreadsheets on it, right? And they'd flip through and they look at your FICO score and they tell you what your rates were. Nothing was automated, it was all paper process. So this company picked us up, and senior year, we wrote all the software that tapped into the credit bureaus, did all the systems, automated that entire book, and automated the lending process for cars. We did that basically in 2000 before anybody else had done it. And then we decided that we never wanted to write software for anybody else ever again.
Right.
They're really complicated people, so we decided that we were going to do our own thing. So we took all of that money and we bootstrapped into what is now PayJunction today.
So what I like about that story is what I also recommend to my students is be a yes. It sounds like you guys were a yes. In other words, this opportunity came up. It wasn't really exactly what you wanted to do.
That's right.
But you said, yeah, we'll do it. It was a way to get money. It was a way to get experience, way to get credibility.
That's
you
right.
learned a little bit about the financial services market.
A lot. Yeah.
And you learned you didn't want to do that for a living, right? It could have come out the other side and said, we kind of like writing code for third parties. Let's do that.
Totally.
Which would have been fine.
Yeah.
Okay, so you decided you didn't want to write software for other people. That was important. And then didn't you guys start a ticketing solution? You went to Coachella and you...
Yeah, so the first round was not PayJunction. So we got in, we did the lending system for auto, and then the first iteration of what we did is we built a company called presaleticketing.com. Just like any online ticketing company today, except 20 years ago, so this is a new thing. And it was will call lists, as most of you guys have all gone to events. You have a will call list, you go to the door, your tickets are there. Back in the days in 2000, before handheld devices and smartphones, a will call list at Coachella was like a stack of paper like that big. And if you had to get there for like 3 hours before and wait in a line while they went through, checked your ID and went up through the will call list. And if you guys have ever been to Coachella, it's hot, right? So you're sitting out there before you get in, waiting to get in, no one's checking the line. So we built the ticketing company and then saw that experience and then looked at that and thought, well, we can do something better than that. So at the time, there was these things called Palm Pilots, little Palm Pilots. They had an antenna with wireless
They're
on
in the
it.
Smithsonian now.
Yeah, they do. We actually have them at the office. We just need to put them in a glass case. The precursor to the iPhone and the Palm, really old. Anyway, so we found a company that made a swiper. We found the Palm Pilot. We found the Palm Pilot that did a wireless connection. And we made them so that the will call list could be downloaded to the Palm Pilot. You could swipe your IDs and it would tell you your ticket. Now everybody expects that these days, but this had never been done before back in 2000. So we built that company where we were successful. We scaled it up. We started to get revenue going, opened up offices in Hollister right across from the Hamburger Habit.
Nice.
And got everything up and moving. And then we looked at the market and the segment, and there's only so many people that sell tickets, right? So like you were constrained of where you could go with it. And interestingly enough, I was at a barbecue here in town, and there was a CEO of a bank payment company that was there, and he knew about what we were building, and he asked me, point blank, he's like, hey, that thing swipes, could you make it process credit cards? And I had absolutely no idea, but I told him yes.
That's being a yes. That's being a yes.
And so he, on the spot, literally said, I'm going to write a check for X number of units. I will sell every single one of them. Give me this product, and I'll sell it. So we hunkered down, we pivoted, we took the core technology that we had, and he connected us into the banking networks, and we pivoted from the ticketing and the swiping and the will call into what was then mobile payments. We basically built Square before they were Square 20 years ago, and they sold the hell out of it. They ended up selling that company for $20 million, and it was a company that basically resold our product. And then we kind of moved up the chain. The product evolved over the last 20 years that we've been going.
Mm-hmm. Well, I'm going to take the first student's question in a second, but again, I like that you were a yes on that. I mean, if you look at it, if you look at when opportunity quote knocks for entrepreneurs, it's often that sort of situation. It's
Sure.
at a networking event. He had his personal pitch down, so when this person said, what's going on in your business, you didn't stumble around and you said, here's what's going on with my business. You gave him a very succinct response, and then he said, can you do this? And you said yes, because you knew that you would figure it out.
That's right.
You weren't ripping him off, you weren't screwing him over. You were like, yeah, we can do that. And when you said, yeah, we can do that, you meant we will do that. We will not fail.
That's right. We delivered on both ends, and he's been successful. Their second company, I think, was just valued at $750 million, and they've kind of leapfrogged, and they still resell our product.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Oh, that's very cool. We'll take the first student's question.
Yeah, so I have a two-part question. So what resources at UCSB or in the Santa Barbara area did you leverage in order to start Pay Junction? And then also, what resources do you recommend that current UCSB students utilize in their entrepreneurial endeavors?
Sure. I mean, the first resource is the people. The most important resource at this school are your peers. Unless you want to go out and on your own, and not many people can, like we've been talking about today, the most valuable resource is meeting as many people and as many professors and making as many connections as you can. In terms of like new resources that weren't here, we started the company in an apartment. So we were on Barco del Norte. I lived on Posado. And we just kind of worked out of the different apartments and made everything happen. We have these really funny old pictures of me sitting there with like 2 cell phones and a foldable table and all sorts of different funny stuff. But things have changed, right? So now I was at the ribbon cutting for the Garage Incubator. And you guys have this beautiful facility that basically takes like-minded people, puts them in an open space, and allows you guys to incubate together and accesses the resources of this place. And I don't know how much they raised and spent on there, but the place looks beautiful. If we would have had that when I was here, I would have been there pretty much all day long. Although our apartment was a lot of fun too. Friday nights and Saturday nights are a little crazy, but yeah.
But it's that incubator is gonna be, I mean, it's already having an impact, but with the new venture competition, that'll be home for some of the companies that come out of it. That's the problem that a lot of schools have is they have these great programs, they get students really excited, they have maybe something like a new venture competition, and then what? Then there's like this gap where you're not quite far enough along to raise money, but you don't want to stop. And so our hope is that the incubator will be that home.
It's a perfect bridge. So I mean, we had to scrounge up our own funds,
get office space,
get foldable tables, pay for the extra internet. Like we had to, that jump from the incubator to our first offices in Hollister is what's now built here.
Yeah.
And it's a safe place for you guys to have like-minded people to launch. And I think it's really, really, really awesome.
Yeah, so anybody watching this, and I know people have come to UCSB just from seeing these videos, it's getting better. Like we even, that's a resource we didn't have last year. We're just going to keep adding to our resources so that if you really want to come here and start a company, we're going to try to help you make it successful. So did you do Pay Junction at the New Venture Competition, or was it the ticketing company, or what were you pitching?
Yeah, so that's actually a really good question. So it was the first thing was a professional services company, probably why we lost. It really wasn't innovative. It was just basically around professional services, around doing the contract work, which led us to the auto lending. We executed under that business plan, got our first contract, found the funding, pivoted into the ticketing company, and then into payments. So the business plan was actually written as like a professional services company.
Got it.
Which, looking at Inogen, probably wasn't.
Changing the world of medicine, services business.
Exactly.
But it led you to where you are today, and that's what I always tell my students.
That's right.
It's not a linear path. It never is.
Business
So
is
start.
never.
Business start, and you'll figure it out.
I mean, there's a reason that the term agile is so prevalent in the world of business today. You got to be able to pivot. You got to be flexible. You got to be able to react to the market, and you got to understand that your first idea is probably not going to be the exact one you're always going to execute on.
Right, and be open to that, and be willing to change it.
Yes.
So you mentioned that you got your funding for your company initially was from customer dollars, which is my favorite source of funding. No dilution. It's perfect.
Zero.
So you bootstrapped your business. There's obviously pluses and minuses to bootstrapping. There's pluses and minuses to VC, private equity, all of them. But and I understand you guys ran up some credit card. This is back in the day of those zero interest credit card offers.
So we didn't raise any money from family. We did it all ourselves. So just the initial contracts and then our personal credit cards. And we had pretty much every 99-cent menu memorized in town.
Yeah.
I've always thought about writing a thank you letter to Taco Bell for like their 99-cent menu.
Should have you in their commercials.
And I would literally, we would go from day to day on the 99-cent menus all the way through town and make it work. And then just try to be as frugal as possible. It took us a few years to get the revenue streams up, and then kept building from there.
And people in this audience watching and here with us may not remember, or may not be, they may be too young. But there was that whole period where credit card companies you would get like 5 a week, like a credit card offer. And they would actually have a credit card in there. And what people would do is they would run up charges on that credit card. And then when they got another one for the next week, they would roll those charges onto that one.
Yeah,
and you could roll it forever.
We did that, yeah.
Yeah.
I do remember a few years in, having a panic attack and looking at it and oh my God, what am I gonna do if we can't get this whole thing going? But you have to have a lot of faith in the idea and a lot of faith in the people that you're working with, and understand that good things don't always come easy.
No, I mean, I wouldn't recommend that strategy, because if the music stops and you don't have a chair, and you might have to file bankruptcy. But
we gambled.
You always had a chair.
Yeah.
So let's go back to the bootstrapping. So again, they all have pluses and minuses. What do you think you gave up, and would you do it again? So certainly there was probably things you could have done faster or differently or sooner. What are those things that come to mind, and then would you do it the same way?
Yeah, I think that's a great question. Okay, so with funding and bootstrapping, in my mind, goes 2 different ways. So with funding comes liquidity events. You take money, you need to exit, and you need to show your investors money. You're going to have a time frame from that, and they're going to want a multiple in, let's call it 3 to 5 years, right? So it causes you to build the culture of your company a little bit differently. You need to be focused around profit, around rapid growth, and you need to meet the expectations of your investors, right? I think the benefit for us of bootstrapping is we're able to take a different long-term approach to the business, where we focus on long-term relationships instead of short-term profit. It allows us to build our culture in the way that we not only treat our internal employees, but our customers in a different way. And in the landscape of financial services and banks, who are really, really not doing a great job in the ethics game these days,
right,
to be in a place where we don't have to answer to these outside investors about profitability, and we can make long-term plays for the benefit of the people that are involved with us, both from an employee and a customer level, allows us to execute the business the way that we want it.
And I think that's key. It's your definition of success is your definition of success.
That's right.
And so there's nothing wrong with the strategy of taking investor money, and just understand what that entails, and understand that that's going to change your definition of success, because they're going to want an outcome, they're going to want a return on their money.
That's right.
If that fits with yours, then perfect. But if it doesn't, then you're going to be in conflict with those folks, because they're going to want their money back.
The mission statement of PayJunction, the very first line, says to build something that lasts longer than us. So very few people are trying to build generational tech companies, a brand that lasts longer than the next flip and the next sale. We're in it for the long haul to try and do that. And the second part of the mission statement is to, again, focus on long-term relationships over short-term profits. So those 2 things paired together with the bootstrapping create a culture where we can control that.
Yep. So I'm going to go to the next student's question in just a second, but I'm going to touch upon the comment about the foregoing near-term profits and creating long-term relationships. And obviously, I subscribe to that. I'm not criticizing that strategy at all. It's worked for you, and I think it's the same kind of strategy I like to instill in my businesses. But I'm curious, have you ever felt like it kind of backfired on you? Like maybe you played with a bad actor, where you felt like they took advantage of that, or they didn't live up to the spirit of what you were trying to get out of that relationship?
Well, I mean, our business is so we're in a low margin business. It takes a lot of businesses in billions of dollars to generate revenue. So there's not a single contract that wouldn't necessarily impact us like that.
Right.
But I think that the trade-off that you're looking for is time, right? So when bootstrapping, it takes much longer to
right,
do everything. So you need to make sacrifices on a personal level, on a professional level. And listen, I have friends that are serial entrepreneurs that take the money and flip them every 5 years, and they're super successful. And they love that new build and flip, and that's a certain type of personality, right? I'm a people person, and I want to build a legacy and something that lasts longer, and that's what I see in terms of value for the whole thing.
Right.
And both are totally viable and awesome ways to be entrepreneurs. It's just the way that we're cut.
So not only do you have to have your definition of success defined,
Yeah.
your investors, if you have them, and your co-founders, because
Yeah.
that's where the conflicts are. It's like a marriage.
That's right.
Where the two people either grow apart. That happens, right? That's legit.
Sure.
But sometimes they just never really sat down and made sure that they were compatible with their long-term goals. Like,
Yeah.
what is success in this relationship?
Yeah, and those things change over the years.
Oh,
as
for
well.
sure. Yeah.
So,
We'll take the next student's question. Hey.
So an EMV-ready terminal helps prevent possible fraudulent activities due to the use of the chip instead of a magnetic
that's
strip.
right.
But since EMV certifications can get backed up, the smart terminal helps to speed up the process. And I understand the smart terminal can speed up these certifications, but what is the ultimate advantage that the smart terminal has over competing technologies?
Sure. So just
So the question is about your smart terminal, just to be
Yeah.
clear.
I gave a little preface for everybody that doesn't know what we do. So this terminal that you guys are seeing back here is what we call a smart terminal. You guys have probably seen them all over the place. The chips we're talking about, everybody's gotten used to those. You put them in, they take forever. Some are fast, some are slow. As a software company, for any of you entrepreneurs that are out there that are going to build something, if you build a software system, you're going to need to take payments, whether it's either online or in person. And what PayJunction does is we enable technology for other companies to add payment processing to their offering, right? So I'll give you an example. One of the partnerships we just finished was with EasyYvet. It's a veterinary hospital software. They service some of the largest vet hospitals in the entire country. They needed to be able to support digital signature capture and this type of transaction processing. And there are competitors to us that, that offer similar technology. But on a technical level, a lot of them require drivers. So you have to install a piece of software down onto the computer. That piece of software talks to the terminal, and there's this chain of all this stuff that needs to happen. It brings their computers into compliance without getting too technical. It's just a patchwork and a big mess, right? So the reason that we're successful with this is a cloud-controlled piece of hardware. There's no software drivers installed. It basically just plugs into the internet and you talk to it via a RESTful API. And it allows the software companies to stay out of scope of PCI. It's rapid development. You're up and running in literally like 15 minutes. And it just limits the scope of what you need to do to enable payments. We want our partners to focus on what they do well. In the case of EasyVet, that's veterinary hospitals, and we want to take care of the payments. Yep.
Yeah, I mean, it could obviously have a huge event, maybe not in veterinarian. I mean, everyone wants to get out of there, but in a high volume retail environment, I mean, that's money, right? If somebody's standing there waiting for that credit card to process.
Every second is money.
Yeah, every second is money. So your sales model is a little bit unique. I've had a number of students from my classes, I think there might be a couple in here, that have worked with you in various capacities, most of them in sales. Maybe just explain a little bit how you leverage the 3,000 independent reps that we talked about. And then I'd love to hear, like, what is the nature of that network in your product that makes it work, so that we can infer like what wouldn't work? Because obviously every solution doesn't work for every potential product.
Sure. Okay. So a network of about 3,000 independent contractors that represent the product, and we've built that team up over the 20 years, almost 20 years we've been running the business. The type of people that do this are either like full-time, this is what they do, they go find companies that see benefit in this. It could be also just like a web developer who builds websites and needs to enable payment processing, needs a partner to set that up. It could be a software company that partners and does exactly what you just asked about. We have a ton of software companies that connect to us, wire up these different cloud systems, and then we need to service their clients. So it's a really diverse mix of resellers out there, and their intentions of enabling payment processing kind of vary all over the place. Mm-hmm. And then we have an internal recruitment department, which is staffed by an amazing team of UCSB students. It's a really great way to get into their first touch of sales career. And we've had some amazing people go in different kind of paths throughout our company. And they're locating potential people that would resell the product, find value in it. They also might be a consultant, a CPA, someone else that has other kind of business connections and means where they want to have payment processing as part of their toolkit.
Right. Okay. So it goes from classic resellers. They might have a bag full of all kinds of products that they're reselling, and it might be something very specifically. The only thing they resell is what you guys are up to.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, one thing that's interesting about this, the distributed model is a lot of companies that bootstrap go too early. Like they think that's going to be their solution. I don't know when you guys started rolling out the OEM strategy or the reseller strategy, but you have to figure it out yourself first.
Yeah.
Like you have to figure out what are the objections, how do you really sell this thing, because a reseller won't figure it out for you.
Well, I mean,
Did you find that to be the case?
no, we try to target, we do target salespeople. So the fundamentals, they have a solid sales background.
Well, right now, you guys, I'm talking about in the early days, when you guys were trying to figure out, we're bootstrapping, we can't hire, a bunch of salespeople. I would assume you guys had to figure it out yourself, and then you started sharing that knowledge with these independent folks.
Yeah, I mean, we did. We built the product. We knew what the value propositions were. We found strong salespeople who, once educated on the value propositions, bridge the gap. I mean, that's pretty much it.
Right.
I mean, build good technology, understand your market segment, understand the value propositions, operational ROI, and let good salespeople do what they do.
So the products that I've seen not work in a sales channel like that would be things maybe they're just so overly technical
Yeah.
that the person's just going to raise their hands and go, look, I don't work for the company, I don't know.
Yeah.
So I think that's a sign that what you guys have built is easy to use, it's easy to explain, it's easy to install, because typically that doesn't work through a channel. It just breaks down. You might find a few people that get it and work hard to figure it out. Most people won't.
It needs to be plug and play. We call it Fisher Price. Elegant, kind of well designed, super easy to use.
Right. So we all know about the PayPal mafia. Like they've gone off and started a bunch of different companies. We have a little one here in town for a company that I was involved with that we sold to Citrix, which I think RightScale, Eucalyptus, AppFolio, Logic Monitor to name 4, but there's more.
Sure.
Have you guys have you seen this at PayJunction? Have you had entrepreneurially minded people that spun out and did their own thing? If so, how do you kind of support that entrepreneurial vigor?
Yeah, I mean, just from internally, yeah, we've had, no one's hit it out of the park, but we nurture anybody. Like we've launched people into pretty much all the major companies up in San Francisco. We've had people independently, engineers leave us and independently start their own software systems. I take a lot of great pride in that, actually. Like the success of people past their experience with PayJunction is just as important as their experience with us.
Right.
That makes sense.
I always did too. I think early in my career, I had a couple awkward exits from companies where I felt like the company could have congratulated me as opposed to being angry at me for leaving.
That's right.
And so I always had that. I always try to overcompensate for that, for what I felt was the wrong way to handle it. Yeah. And when people come to me and they say, John, it's been a great run, appreciate working with you, but I'm going to go start XYZ, I love that.
Yeah.
I feel like they gain skills, and sometimes I would do what I could to support them if there were things I could do, or else I would just cheer them on to the side.
Makes me proud, to be honest with you. I think that type of growth in terms of the people that we work with is probably one of the most important currencies that I value personally. So.
Do you guys have an official, I know, Citrix for a while had an incubator where you could join that incubator if you're part of the company. There's a company in LA that I'm an investor in. They encourage people to moonlight. I'm not sure I would go quite that far. Everybody at that company had 2 email addresses. They had the company and then their own side gig. Have you guys ever thought about doing that, or you haven't quite gotten to that point?
No, we haven't gotten there.
I struggle with it because I like the fact that you're letting people be entrepreneurial and they don't have to hide it. They don't have to do it under the table. But at the same time, maybe it's too disruptive. I'm not sure.
Yeah, I don't know. I'd have to think more about that. We haven't started a program like anything like that.
Okay. Very cool. We'll take the next student's question.
What were some innovations that PayJunction has implemented and thought would be a great idea, but the innovation ended up failing? And how did your company learn from the failure?
Sure. Okay, so let's talk about the payments. So the Palm Pilot that I told you guys about with the antenna on it and the swiping was way ahead of its time. So this is before everybody had smartphones. These Palm Pilots are expensive. You had to pay for the wireless signals.
Mostly business people, right?
Mostly business people, and we were way too far ahead of the curve. It was literally the exact same technology that Square executes today, but it was too far ahead of the market. And what we found was that the type of businesses using those mobile payments were too small. They'd be doing like a couple $1,000s a month, just like Square kind of targets these micro merchants. Yep. That's where those solutions made sense, and it didn't scale us where we needed to go. So we pivoted away from that, and we moved that into the kind of one of the facets of the program or the application, and then built out a mature system that serviced mid-market and larger businesses so that we could scale the company in a better way.
So one of the things I admire about PayJunction is you're building enterprise software, you're building, a lot of it is behind the scenes. I mean, this manifests itself, but a lot of the stuff you build is behind the scenes. Yet you've really made it part of your culture and part of your mission. I think at one point you said you want to design products like Jobs did at Apple, and that's just part of your mantra.
Yeah. Design first, yeah.
Design first, yeah. And I think it just flows through the company. As we said, this plug and play approach is difficult to do if you're taking shortcuts. Was that something that you guys tried to do at the beginning, or you just couldn't do it at the beginning because you had to hack things to get them out? How disciplined have you been on that over time?
It's at our core.
Yeah.
I mean, like user experience, the Fisher-Price, simple and then beautiful. Like we want to look at it. So when we've done something right, like I look at it and I get this warm and fuzzy feeling. So like when I've done something beautiful and we got a piece of code or a UI or something else like that, I just can't stop looking at it. It makes me feel right. And then going through the design process and the software process, that's one of the most fun things that we do. We're very user and design centric.
Are you still involved in that part of the design?
Heavily, yeah. So we have an amazing
Which is
design
interesting because
team.
Jobs never really gave that. All the stuff he was doing as a global CEO, he kept that part of
Yeah.
his responsibility.
9 a.m. every morning, I have my design meeting call where my entire design team and I review everything that we're doing from every aspect of it. And it's probably my favorite hour of the entire day.
Very cool. So you guys have a very high rating on Glassdoor and a decent number of ratings. It's not like based on a very small sample size. I think when I looked, it was 4.8 out of 5. So it's almost as high as you can get. And you personally have well over 100 reviews, 98% approval. Again, I don't know how you ever get 100 of anything in life. What do you guys do and I'm asking this question selfishly because I have CEOs that ask me this, like, John, how can I do this better? So what do you do to proactively monitor, besides Glassdoor, like what do you do internally to monitor how satisfied people are, as well as to manage employees' happiness?
Yeah, so I mean, to put that into perspective, it was kind of interesting. So there's 740,000 businesses on Glassdoor, and PayJunction was ranked number 29 in the whole country. And listen, this comes down to an entire village. And actually Mia, who's back there, and Amy, who's here today, we have an entire team of people who are dedicated to recruiting and making sure that we hire slow, fire fast. We want to make sure that we build a composition of the team that's got a family atmosphere. Like I said, we now have the luxury of focusing on long-term relationships over short-term profit, not just for our customers, but our employees. We really care about their culture. We want you guys to have fun. We want you guys to grow. We invest everything that we can into that, and that shows. And that's highly due to the team that we've invested in.
So you started to describe the culture. Just give us a little bit more, a few more adjectives on that. I was going to use a couple examples, but I don't want to. How else would you describe it? So if you were trying to explain this to me as a new employee.
Work hard, play hard. Yeah, I mean.
So then, what if I was a tenacious employee and I said, what does that mean?
Yeah, I mean, so what does play hard mean to you? So.
Well, I just graduated from UCSB.
For some people,
you don't want to know.
Yeah. For some people, it's surfing. For some people, it's about work-life balance, right? So we want you to come in. We want you to grow. We want you to take the time to decompress. We want you to enjoy this beautiful place in Santa Barbara that we live. I think one of the greatest gifts that we have is running this company out of here.
Yep.
And enjoying this town and making sure that we're part of the community and the culture, and making sure that you have enough time and energy to balance that work life and enjoy this area that we're in.
Do you do things? Do you organize events so that like go to the Channel Islands and do some cave sea kayaking?
Yeah.
Do you actually organize things like that as a company?
Yeah, they did a paddleboarding thing. We try to. They've got events going on all the time. They did puzzle box rooms a couple weeks ago. Mia's always the bastion of kind of finding all this kind of fun stuff for everybody to do. Team building's important, and we got to again enjoy this beautiful area that we live in.
Right.
Yeah.
We are very, very lucky.
Yeah.
We'll take the next student's question.
As other options like Venmo and cryptocurrencies increase in popularity, what are your thoughts on businesses accepting those kind of payments?
Oh boy, we could talk cryptocurrency all night. Okay, so cryptocurrency hasn't reached kind of mass adoption yet, right? And when it does, PayJunction will most likely be there to consider the payment processing of it. But to educate you guys a little bit about cryptocurrency, let's talk about 3 problems why you can't use it everywhere. The first thing is the average the Bitcoin transaction time as of March in 2018 is 20 minutes to make a transaction authorized. So not many of you are going to sit at a retail location and wait 20 minutes for your Bitcoin transaction to be approved, right? So that means there's only certain situations where that thing works. Second thing is incentives. So let's say that we fix the speed problem, right? And you have a choice between your Bitcoin or your American Express rewards points where you get free airline miles and everything else around it. And they're going to be, which one are you going to pick? You're going to pick the one with the rewards, right? Okay. So there's the problem of the rewards that need to be kind of bridged. And then the third problem is consumer protection. So if you make a Bitcoin transaction, there's no one to call and complain. Like if you purchase something bad on your credit card, they don't deliver the product, something fails, you call the 800 number on the back of your card, they send you your money back, and the business has to fight to prove that they did you right? There is no such thing in a Bitcoin transaction. It's like handing someone money and never seeing them ever again. Venmo, Zelle, all these other ones, Bitcoin, all these type of things have these same kind of issues. So there's a right time and a right place for it. People haven't cracked those key issues for mass adoption. So in the markets that we work in currently, we will focus on traditional payments, credit cards, ACH transactions, and the like. Yeah.
So let's talk about crypto a little bit more. Where do you see that evolving? I mean, I agree it's slow. There's no, it's decentralized by definition.
People have fixed the speed problem by centralizing it. So I mean, everybody's kind of cracked those different problems in different way, but it hasn't become ubiquitous yet.
Where do you see that playing in PayJunction's future? Like, you're waiting to a certain point where there's more adoption? Are you? I'm leading the witness here. Are you looking at blockchain already? Because blockchain has a lot of potential, irrespective of what happens to Bitcoin and some of the other currencies.
So we're a payment processor, not an issuer, right? So I don't have any interest in ICOs or creating currencies or anything else like that.
Right.
But if we reach critical mass and people want to pay with that transaction, that's when PayJunction will make the moves. And I'm sorry, what was the question?
Well, I'm interested if you're thinking about blockchain at all. So I know you're not going to create a currency. But blockchain has, as you know, fundamental uses beyond its use in managing currencies.
Sure, shared ledgers. There's
exactly
all sorts of interesting applications.
Do you see that as an application in your business, or is it still just too nascent?
Again, it starts from the issuing. So the issuers, so Visa, MasterCard, the people that issue payments, or BitPay or the other ones that kind of do that stuff, decide. Again, that reaches critical mass. We're the company that would accept it. So the blockchain really acquires to the accountability and the tracking of the transactions from the issuing end, not necessarily on, it would be on our end for accepting it. But yeah, it's yet to be seen. When those three things are solved that I had mentioned,
Yep.
we will reach critical mass around that. And if the government regulation doesn't try to pin it down, then it will be required to be part of the payment processing infrastructure.
Yeah, I would imagine the government will try to hold it back long past when they should, but
Yep.
it'll happen anyway.
Yeah.
Do you have any prediction as to when you think those things will come together?
I've been going out. I met and had dinner with the CEO of one of the larger payment processing companies for crypto, and we had a really nice dinner at Holdren's here in town. We talked a lot about it, and we had that exact conversation that I just had right now. It's going to be slow going, and it's going to take a little bit of time, but it's a massive movement, and you're going to have to keep a really close eye on it.
Do you think it'll initially eat into kind of the Venmo market, where it's person to person, peer to peer, kind of more of a trusted relationship? Like, I don't, if I'm taking Venmo from you, I probably trust you at some level, because I can't get my money back if you're, screwing me over.
That's right.
Do you think it'll move into that market first, or?
That's where it is right now.
Yeah.
There's a lot of illicit things that happen on those transaction networks where most of the volume is.
Yeah. Silk Road.
So there's, anonymity in transactions breeds money laundering and some other things that just we aren't part of.
Right.
So,
right.
it's like I said, it's gonna be interesting to see where it goes.
Let's get back a little bit to culture and hiring young people. Again, some companies do it well. Some companies just aren't geared to doing it well. You talked about the culture. You talked about events, things like that. What about? Do you have any programs, or how would you describe what you do to ensure that these inexperienced but passionate young people are successful? Like beyond just beyond the fact that the culture is supportive of those young people. What could I learn if I was trying to bring in young people to my company? What could I learn from the way you guys are doing it? Your onboarding, et cetera.
Yeah. So first of all, I think it requires tiered positions and a path of growth, I think is the most important thing. And it's something that we still need to work on ourselves as well. So offering and targeting jobs that are geared in terms of scheduling, time requirements for UCSB students that fit. We understand this college. We understand what your time is. We understand what you need to learn at this stage in your life. And we're trying to craft positions that grow you at that period in your life. Past that, we try to offer employment opportunities to ascend into different positions outside of sales, other different kind of positions, and making sure that companies understand the basic needs, time requirements of students, and then also offer a path of growth through the company is something that we strive to do better every day, and we work on all the time.
And I think that's the key. Is it's not a one and done. Like
Yep.
it's kind of like people are changing. Expectations of students change every
That's right.
year. It's a moving target, and staying in touch with what's applicable now wouldn't have been applicable 5, 6, 7 years ago,
That's right.
and that'll be true in the future. What if you hire a lot of young people? I know maybe you're not doing as many interviews of young people as you used to do, but you have interviewed a lot of young people. What are some examples, anecdotes that you remember that have stood out to you all these years later of appropriate things young people did to stand out from the crowd? What I always say to students is just be different. Like, we interview a lot of people in the course of a day. It's hard to remember anybody really. Do something significant that helps you stand out so that you're remembered in a positive.
For me, it's about vulnerability and sincerity. Like when you walk into a room and someone's really talking to you and giving it to you real, like there's the interview you
Yep.
and then the vulnerable you. If you can find a place to find the real vulnerable you and communicate as a person during that interview process, you're going to make a connection with the hiring person. You're going to have a different tear up. Because everybody's going to walk in with the same scripted question that answers it in some manner. What you really want to do is try to make a personal connection with people. At least for a company like Page Junction that cares about the culture that we're building. Because the answers to your question are also, the person that you are is just as important as the answers to your question. You want to make sure you vibe with the people that we're recruiting.
I think it's great advice because there's an inherent artificiality to that conversation.
It's scary.
You're sitting
Yeah.
there, I'm sitting here,
Totally.
you're evaluating me,
Yeah.
I'm young, and I think that's really good advice. If you can, you're never going to break that paradigm because it is an interview.
Sure.
Like you're not drinking beers or whatever. But to the extent that you can treat that as a conversation
Yeah.
and less as an interrogation.
That's right.
While not coming across so super casual that you're laughable. Like if you come in like just it's your buddy and you're just hanging out, and that's not going to work either. Keep that decorum, keep that professionalism, but don't be afraid to be a real person and to show that vulnerability. I think that's
Professional, sincere, and
Yeah.
the intention.
really good advice.
That you really want to be
Do
there.
your homework, for goodness sake. Like,
Yes,
walk in there.
actually, that's a good thing. One of the first things that we always ask is tell me about Pay Junction, and we do this at every level of our hiring, from like high-level executives to everything like sales directors and everything else like that.
Yep.
And you would be amazed at how many people come in for positions that have not done their homework about the company that they're coming to interview with. Know it up and down. Know it absolutely up and down before you come in.
Well, I used to have a product that you could trial for free for 30 days. And it wasn't the first question I'd ask, but I'd say, oh, have you tried, go to meeting, or have you tried? No, but I intend to.
Yeah.
Like, dude, like you want a job here. Like,
Yeah.
you just told me you're passionate about the company. Come on,
Yeah.
do some homework up front.
Exactly.
Does the emergence of cryptocurrency as a popular currency threaten industries that manage fiat money? And do you anticipate the world adopting a cryptocurrency in favor of a nation-backed fiat money?
Ooh, yeah, like I said, I think we kind of covered that in our last kind of line of discussion. Don't know where that's going. But I will tell you this, when it reaches critical mass and our businesses start telling us that we need to accept it, we'll be done like
You
that.
guys will be there.
Yeah.
Yeah, so you have your ear to the ground. You know what the players are doing that are the originators.
Yeah.
And when they demand it, you're going to be like, code's written.
Yeah.
Let's go.
Yeah, so we're in the business of payment facilitation, Visa, MasterCard, or ACH. If it's Bitcoin, Venmo, Zelle, which is the new banking one for the peer-to-peer, whatever it be that it's critical mass, it's our responsibility to make sure that that's frictionless, accounted for, and delivered to our clients.
So I had a student literally, as I was walking in here, ask me if he should short Bitcoin. I mean, it's kind of neat being a professor because I've heard about all these things from the beginning. Like when Ethereum was brand new,
Yeah.
a student brought it to my attention. And my advice has been pretty consistent. I just say, look, it's so radically risky at this point. It's so uncontrolled. The extent of fraud is probably pervasive, although
Yes.
we can't prove it. It's like a roulette wheel. You are gambling.
Yeah.
You might make money, you might lose money.
Yep.
Do you feel different? I mean, I just feel like it's too much of the Wild West right now.
I mean, without disclosing the name of the CEO I went to dinner with, that's about
Really?
on word. It's,
Okay.
Yeah, it's the Wild West right now.
Okay.
Yeah.
Wild West can be great because there can be opportunities for you, and I think there's ways to mine the miners when it comes to crypto. People that are actually doing the mining, but I would stay away from trying to short it or go long on it or whatever.
I personally don't own any. I don't trade in it, so I don't really have a whole lot of opinion around it.
Right. Okay. So I think you did an incredible job of your time here at UCSB. I love the fact that you said you came in with an intention of starting a business.
That's
I
right.
think that's rare. It's becoming more common, but I think it's rare. It's more rare than it should be.
That's why I love this program. I mean, this entire thing's geared towards nurturing these type of people.
Yeah, well, I think one of the
Intentions.
services we provide is just letting students know it's an option.
Yep.
Like, hey, we're not trying to turn people into entrepreneurs. We're not trying to turn you away from a profession. But if you feel like you have that in your DNA, like you and I certainly have it, then it's an option. But are there things that you would do differently, or maybe phrased another way? What can students, other than networking, which we've encouraged them to do already, what else can they do to maximize their time? We get students here, some have 2 years, some have 2 months, some have 3 years. What can they do with the rest of that time?
I think one of the greatest threats to an entrepreneur is analysis paralysis. Like, you have 5 ideas, you don't know which one's the greatest one, you're afraid to dip your toe in the water, and I think it's about like just getting out there and doing it. Minimum viable product, touch it, put it in the market, cut out the piece of paper. I mean, you just got to move and do it, because like the greatest kind of block to any great entrepreneur in the beginning is themselves. It's their fear of failure.
Right.
So I would just say get out there and try it all and be ready to pivot. Don't think that your first idea is going to be the right one.
I love Guy Kawasaki's Art of the Start. I think the best advice in that book is
Yep.
just start.
Just
And that's
start.
his advice. Like, just get started.
Yep.
I had a student today after a class, and well-intentioned, nothing wrong with his question, but he said, I have an idea that I want to pursue once I get funding. No, dude, pursue your idea now.
That's right.
And maybe funding will follow, maybe it won't. But just start
Yeah.
There are things you can do right now before you get funding. Do them. You may decide you don't even want to pursue this.
It's just fun to do it too. I mean, just the design, the thought, the process. It's just
Solving problems.
It's a rad process.
I always
Super fulfilling.
thought of it as like putting a puzzle together, but without having the box that shows you the picture.
That's right.
So I've got puzzle pieces, but I don't really know what this is supposed to look like at the end. I'm on.
Yep.
And that's fun.
Exactly.
So I always, not always, but I like to ask about mentors, because I'm a big fan of mentors when students are trying to get through their college. It's not too early to strike up a mentor relationship. Did you have any? And if you didn't really have that in your background, are you working with people right now that consider you to be a mentor?
You know, I had fantastic professors here. I don't think any that were, so there was,
Just to be clear, you didn't take my class.
Your class wasn't here, so this wasn't, there really was no
I'm teasing,
entrepreneur
I'm just
class
teasing.
that was here, like
No.
really when I was
There
here.
wasn't.
So it was just computer science. So while I had Konheim and all these brilliant, absolutely brilliant computer scientists, that have, done amazing things, and they taught me technical fundamentals. The entrepreneur piece was something we learned on our own. And unfortunately, I can honestly say that I didn't really have a mentor. We were peers, kind of lost through the entrepreneurship together,
Yep,
my
yep.
partners and I, and we kind of waded through, and we had to become masters of it all ourselves.
And that's changed. We have a very strong
I think
mentor
it's-
program right now.
fantastic, and that's what I really love. Like for the ribbon cutting for the incubator
Right.
program, and seeing that facility and the ability to nurture that and mentor that was what wasn't here when I was here, and I can't tell you how much I appreciate that.
Have you, I was probably the worst mentor ever when I was an operator, because I just felt like I didn't have the time, I didn't want to make the time, whatever. I certainly didn't do a very good job of being a mentor when I was heads down. How about you now? You're running a company, you've got a lot of responsibilities. Do you find that you have the time for that?
I don't know if I would say that there's like a roster on my phone of people that I'm mentoring, but I try to engage in these type of events as much as possible,
Right.
As time allows.
Right.
And I get a lot of value out of it. It makes me feel good to try to inspire people to make the leap and have some faith in themselves and kind of give it a try.
Yeah, what's great about being involved with folks at this age, as well as the folks that are watching this all over the world, is a small change in their path at this point can really change their trajectory, because they have so much of a trajectory in front of them still.
That's right.
So it is very gratifying.
Yeah.
We'll take the last student question.
Does PayJunction target business clients who will be using their services more for business-to-business payments rather than consumer-to-business payments, and why?
Yeah, good question. We have a mix of both, business to business and business B2C. More importantly, we try to determine vertical markets where a product fits. So as opposed to trying to be everything for everyone, we're very honed at specific mid-market verticals where we tune our application to have operational benefit. We try to understand and speak the language. So for example, veterinary, medical, auto, some example targets, markets that we do. Our sales staff are trained to speak in their language, right? So we talk in the way that they speak. We understand the layout of their business. We understand their operations. We understand the impact of our technology. So as opposed to like focusing on B2B or B2C, we try to craft a product that helps a specific vertical and understand that vertical as deeply as we can to penetrate it. Yeah.
So I want to end on this question. You mentioned earlier that from the very beginning, you and your co-founders wanted to build an organization that would outlive the founders. How do you envision that will manifest itself? Do you have succession plans in mind? So when somebody's watching this at PayJunction 15, 20 years from now,
Yeah.
what is their world going to look like?
You know, I hope that the next leader of this company comes from within. I hope that just like Enterprise Rent-A-Car or some of these beautiful private companies that are multi-generational, they rear up the next generation of people that understand the core values, understand the execution, understand the long-term vision of what we've built, and take it on.
So I think a lot of people don't realize the number of private companies that are out there, and they're
Yeah.
quite successful.
Yeah.
I think part of it is companies that are private. They're private in the literal sense too.
Exactly.
Like they don't want the
Share, yeah.
like I'll date this video, but I'll just say a major CEO of a social media company was grilled today by the Senate. Like some people don't want that,
Yeah.
right? And that tends to come from the big IPO, the big money exit, and there's nothing wrong with that either.
Sure.
I've gone down, I've taken companies public. There's nothing wrong with it, but it just comes with different baggage.
That's right.
But because of that, I think most people would be surprised at the number of private companies that they have succession plans. They keep on ticking. They're very good to their employees. In some cases, they can be even better than their employees than their public competitors because they don't have to disclose all that stuff. And I don't mean anything wrong.
Yeah.
It's just they can spend their money where they want to without somebody criticizing that.
What we see on TechCrunch and a lot of the news are the companies that are getting funded, and we're running through these PR runs where we're doing a pump so they can sell and building up this mass. And in the background, there's the private companies that are doing the slow, long plays that we're talking about. And both are viable and very successful. There's
And you
lots
see
of
it in-
amazing ones in the
And you see it
country.
in Europe a lot.
That's right.
I mean, Europe has had a long legacy of these companies that are household names. You'd be surprised to learn that they're private.
Yeah, and listen, some companies you need funding. If you're going to build something that needs
Right.
millions of dollars investment in biotech and you just need the funding, you've got to go get the funding. In computer science and software, from all of you that are in comp sci here, you can put together a team with very minimal resources and get a minimum viable product into the market and do it yourself. So it just depends what you're doing. It depends on what you want to do, how long you want to do it, and what your personal goals are,
Define success and then go after it.
Find success, that's right.
Great. Thanks, Randy. Appreciate it.
Appreciate it.